It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
Hello, Susan. How are you?
Kevin, doing great. We've had a wonderful Thanksgiving week.
Good to hear. Same here as well. It was a good one. Still working on leftovers, but that's a whole nother show. But really a great time of year, obviously, as we finish up Thanksgiving and now head toward the Christmas season. But if you look around America right now, there's a lot of unrest. There's a lot of finger pointing. There's a lot of divisiveness, and that's not a good thing.
Part of it is what the media chooses to show us and what the media chooses to focus on. But if you even have the news on at all during the holidays and during this time, everything that you're seeing is about this unrest that's happening in Ferguson. And certainly we want to make sure that every law has been followed and that there is fair and equal treatment of our citizens. But the process has played out, and the grand jury, declined to indict. And it's just been disappointing to watch some of the after effects of the unrest, just watching the looting, watching the bad behavior that is coming out of something that certainly it's a tragedy when anyone dies. But then to look to our president, it's not as if he has done much to quell this unrest and to point to the rule of law. And then when you couple that with, here we are at Thanksgiving, and one by one the retailers seem to just be caving and giving in and making their employees work on Thanksgiving Day. And certainly they wouldn't do it if there wasn't a desire from consumers to go and to shop. But my concern is just where we are as a culture. But I do believe that there is something that we can do about it, and I think it's just going to take more of us really to just insist that we're going to focus on the hope that is in our country as well.
Yeah, I always thought Black Friday was bad enough, and now this Thanksgiving situation. I mean, kudos to places like Chick-fil-A and PC Richard and others who just absolutely will not allow that to happen, even if they lose some money to some of their opponents and competitors, I should say, on those holidays due to letting their employees off. But as far as this divisiveness and, pitting race against race, and we've seen this not only from the administration, but from the media, from celebrities. I mean, what happens if Officer Wilson was indicted? Well, then everything's okay in the world? I mean, what do people want? What was wanted here? When you see celebrities tweet these irresponsible tweets like disappointed with what happened. Well, what do you mean? You wish the man did do something wrong? I mean, there were witnesses who were able to hear all the testimony, everything. These people who are offering opinions on it beyond their realm of knowledge, we're not there for all of that. And I think the prosecutor was tremendous in detailing step by step of why this was what it was.
It was interesting also watching as the media was there in Ferguson as they were talking to some of the citizens as they were trying to go about their normal everyday lives. And it did not seem as if the citizens minded or even had an issue with peaceful assembly, that they believed and even articulated that it was fine for them to voice their opinion and to peacefully protest. But when and if it interfered with, the everyday average person trying to just live their lives, that's when the citizens said, that's where they're crossing a line. But it was encouraging to watch the reaction of the residents there in Ferguson as they are, I'm sure, dealing with a very difficult time of unrest in their community.
In the meantime, you have to feel for these business owners in Ferguson who have their businesses burnt to the ground. Some of them were chains like Little Caesars and whatnot, but others were private businesses. I saw a woman with an antique shop, another woman with a bakery. And you just got to feel for these people. They build it up. That's the American dream right there. And, up in flames right in your own neighborhood from people who are trying to say, hey, we're on the same page as you. Well, tell that to the business owner who doesn't have a business anymore.
Well, it is up to our leaders to lead. And my concern is that President Obama seems to be more inclined to use a lot of these situations to rile up the base, and instead of coming in as a leader, as our president, as someone that could possibly just through his words and through his leadership bring some semblance of calm to the situation, he instead seems to take the more political way and kind of stoke the fires for his base. And so that is disappointing. At the same time, I would like to see the Republicans speak out a little more firmly on this as well and show some leadership. So we just seem to be in such a vacuum right now, but I do think that there is an awakening that's going on within the country, that they are hungry for leadership, and it's my hope that we're going to continue to see some more people come through, like Joni Ernst and people like that. So I'm excited about that.
And you know what else gets you? You see some other cases across the country where the victim, quote unquote, was a lot more empathy could have been given than to say a Mike Brown, who did, obviously is caught on tape robbing a store and things of that nature. You had a 12-year-old black child who was shot with a toy gun. Why isn't that the case that is protested? You have white victims. You have victims of all different colors. And I say victims on the ones where there was something wrong, but what I'm saying is those who've been lose their life through a police situation. Yet this case, because Al Sharpton or whoever else wants to jump onto it and stoke the fire, no play or pun intended, that's the one you see, and then everyone, if you say a disparaging word about someone who an officer was going after, who was looked at as a robbery suspect, then you're the bad guy. So it's a tough situation, and Democrat Party enjoys this because, like you said, when you could pit people against people, that's a win for them because it fires up the base.
Well, it's my hope that we're going to continue to see some changes in leadership, and we're going to see some people that come into office who don't have an agenda other than to lead on the principles on which they campaign. So stay tuned. I think we're in for some more interesting news.
You got it, Susan. January, when Joni Ernst starts to make them squeal, right?
Sounds great, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
All right, Susan. See you next week. Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. Good leaders are often born out of extremely bad situations. A good leader can flip events on their head, turning negatives into positives. Unfortunately, President Obama missed his opportunity in Ferguson, Missouri. Sometimes presidents have to simply say no to their handlers and seize the opportunity to do the right thing. Ronald Reagan was a master at this, but of course he believed in doing the right thing. Reagan added that ingenious command to his Brandenburg Gate speech, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." His handlers removed it. President Reagan defied them and followed his heart. He put the words back in his speech, changing the world forever. After the night of ugly rioting in Ferguson, President Obama could have gone on TV and announced that he, Michelle, and his two girls were headed to Ferguson, Missouri for Thanksgiving to pitch in and help the small businesses that were vandalized and burned down by the so-called protesters. He could have had a hammer and a broom in hand, working hand in hand with the people of Ferguson, Missouri. Instead of further dividing our country, he could have invited people to join him and help him. Wow, he could have changed the ugliness of the riots and turned it into Americans pulling together and helping each other through a rough time. And he could have talked one-on-one with the legitimate protesters who have concerns. As the first African-American president, he had the unique ability to unite instead of divide our country by a single act of self-sacrifice. People are hungry for a leader who is willing to roll up his sleeves, pick up a broom, and work as a humble servant instead of a lecturer. History will not be kind to the president. I used to tell my kids, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Just once, Mr. President, defy your handlers and take a shot. Maybe you can change the world for the better, but not if you never try. This is Sarah Steelman from Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Commonwealth Common Sense and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. So just head to mamagrizzlyradio.com, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Visit mamagrizzlyradio.com for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, like Mama Grizzly Radio on Facebook and follow along on Twitter at Mama Grizz Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Susan B. Stimson, at Sarah_Steelman, and at 3DSTS. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Susan Stimson, and everyone here at Mama Grizzly Radio. Thanks to Orrin Hatch, and thank you for listening today. A special thanks to our sponsor, 3D Security and Training Academy. Visit 3dsta.com. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.